Thank you so much for that. Hello, everyone. How are y'all doing? Doing okay? Thank you for spending your Saturday afternoon with me. I'm very honored to be spending this time with you, especially the Saturday before holiday. So thank you for taking the time to do that. Thank you, University of Arizona, for having me. I'm really excited to share this cooking demo with you. So today I'll be showing you how to make blue corn bread, and I'm going to show you what to do with it in 3 different ways. So you have the blue corn bread here, and I'm going to show you how to make blue corn bread stuffing. So it's like one of the perfect holiday dishes that you can make. And I'm also going to show you how to make blue cornbread croutons that you can put on your salad. So that's what we'll be making today. But before we begin, let me just introduce myself for those who may not know who I am or what I do. Today, everyone. Alana Yazzie, get a chef. Tutoni Nishlan, Tatnasani Bashkim, Tabaha Dashiche, Kiani Dashimele. Hello, everyone. My name is Alana Yazzie. I am Modern Navajo. I am born for the Water and Table Plains. So I am originally from northern New Mexico. I grew up in a small town called Fruitland, and I lived there my whole life. And I went off to college at Marquette University, which is in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And I lived there for 4 years, and I graduated with a bachelor's degree in business, so I have a degree in marketing and human resources. And once I graduated, I moved to Phoenix, where my then boyfriend, now husband, was going to school at ASU. And we've lived in the Phoenix area for a little over a decade, and it's a place that I call home now. And my time in Phoenix has led to the building of my business, which is called the Fancy Navajo. And the Fancy Navajo is a lifestyle and food blog that follows along my life as a contemporary Diné woman living in the city. And my goal with the Fancy Navajo is to inspire others to embrace their culture no matter where they live. And so I do that in a variety of ways. I do that mainly through social media. I share things from like native fashion, native businesses, my travels, gardening, and recipes. And the recipes are kind of what I'm most known for. It's kind of what's gained the popularity throughout the years, specifically recipes that incorporate Indigenous and Navajo ingredients. And the way I like to cook is very in a modern way. So some of my most popular recipes are for things like blue corn cupcakes, blue corn cookies, as well as tortillas. So I also highlight traditional ways to use these ingredients. But that has been something that I've been doing in the last decade or so. And something remarkable happened through what I was doing, which was I was able to write a cookbook, which is the Modern Navajo Kitchen. It was just published last month. And it's something that I'm very proud and very honored that I had the opportunity to write my own cookbook. Because as many of you know, a lot of Indigenous peoples, we haven't had the opportunity to write our own stories. So I'm very honored that I had this opportunity to share my perspective of Navajo cuisine, specifically highlighting it in a modern perspective. Because, a lot of times we spend a lot of time thinking about traditional recipes and how we're going to go back to it. But it's also important to think about those modern recipes. How are we going to carry on those ingredients into the future? And also, how are we going to relearn some of those traditions that have been lost? And so I had the great opportunity to write 60 home-style recipes that celebrate the flavors and the traditions of the Diné people. And it's a very lovely book that is meant to be very approachable. So I'm not a trained chef in any way. I'm just someone who loves to cook in the kitchen. So these recipes are super simple, very approachable. They don't require a lot of ingredients. And I really set you up with the tools to make sure that you can make these ingredients. So just some highlights in the book is that there's a Navajo food pantry, which explains, different types of Navajo foods that you'll use regularly through the cookbook, as well as tools, how to roast cornmeal, how to roast green chilies. And then at the very end of the book, I offer a resource to source a lot of these ingredients because, when we think about Indigenous cooking, it's like, yeah, I really want to make it, but I don't know where to get all those ingredients. And with the advent of internet and social media, a lot of these Indigenous producers are able to sell their own goods online, which I think is so awesome. Because, years back, I remember having to go home to stock up on a lot of these ingredients, but now you can buy it online and it'll be at your doorstep a few days later. So I'm really excited about the book. And the book is sold wherever books are sold, so you can buy it here at the bookstore today. You can also purchase it at Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Goodreads, and even your local bookstore. So if it's something you want to check out, definitely do that. But yeah, that's just a little bit about me. And let's go ahead and get into the little cooking demonstration I'm going to show you. I'm going to have to probably put down the mic at some point, so I apologize if everyone can't hear me. I kind of talk very softly naturally. But like I said, we're going to be making a recipe for blue corn bread. So it looks like this here. And this is a modern take on a traditional Navajo recipe. So traditionally, the Navajo people, we ate blue corn patties, which looks like this. If I had a little bit more time, I would have brought some with me, but they take a little bit of time. But basically, it is a bread made with very simple ingredients. The highlight of this is blue cornmeal, which is right here. It's juniper ash, it's salt, and you cook the corn in like a paste, you form it in a patty, and then you kind of fry it on a pan. Traditionally, they used to do this over hot coals or embers, and it was kind of like a natural oven or stove for them to make. And those ashes provided extra flavor and nutrients, and it's just something that's packed with a lot of nutrition. So taking this recipe more into a modern day setting, we are going to be making the blue corn bread. And like I said, this highlights blue corn. And as most of you know, corn is used a lot in Indigenous ingredients. So not just the blue corn, but we also use a lot of the white corn, the yellow corn. And to me, it's just really fascinating how we use this corn because we don't just use it in one way. We can eat it in a fresh way. We steam the corn in underground pits and have it that way. We then take that corn sometimes and we dry it out and we make something that's called IndigiWellbeing or steamed corn. We also take this corn, we roast it, we dry it, and we make it into a cornmeal. And we have it to use all year round. And I just think that's so awesome that, our ancestors really became experts in using this ingredient. And so I'm always honored to use it in my cooking. And it's just pretty. I like cooking with the blue corn, which is why I'm sharing the recipe today, because it's just a pretty color and it just makes me happy when I eat. So, and one thing with the blue corn that I do have to mention is traditionally it's paired with juniper ash. So juniper ash is literally what the name entails. It's the ash of burned juniper trees. And we take those juniper branches, we burn them down, and we get an ash. And this ash is what I like to call a Navajo superfood, because this little ash provides so much nutrients. They say that 1 teaspoon of juniper ash is the equivalent of 1 cup of calcium. And that is just amazing because a lot of Indigenous people, were lactose intolerant. And it's really cool kind of how they figured out how to make that, how to eat that, and develop that as a way to sustain our people. And so the juniper ash is used a lot in blue corn cooking. And so it adds the nutrients to it. If you guys are familiar with like Mexican cooking, you may have heard of something called nixtamalization. So juniper ash is an alkaline powder. It turns into an alkaline solution, which also mimics nixtamalization, meaning that it breaks down the corn, makes it more digestible, makes it more nutritious. And appearance wise, it also deepens the dark blue color of it. So if you don't cook with the juniper ash, sometimes the blue corn may look kind of purple. So I just wanted to highlight that superfood ingredient. I am not using it in today's demonstration because one of the things I wanted to do in my book was to make a lot of these dishes approachable. So, you know, if you're not in a place to make your own juniper ash or buy your own juniper ash, I didn't want it to be a hindrance in anybody wanting to try to make these dishes. So the blue cornbread does not include it. And, you know, that's okay. It's still going to come out delicious. But if you do want to add the juniper ash to it, you can substitute it with the baking powder. I would substitute it half. So the recipe calls for 2. I would split it half and half, so 50-50. And yeah, so that's my little thing about the food. I'm going to drink of water because I'm talking a lot. Okay, all right, so now to the fun part of actually making things. All right, so I am going to go out of order a little bit because I only have one bowl with me. So we're gonna disregard my instructions of mixing things into separate bowls. So I'm going to, how are we gonna do this? I'm gonna go ahead and add my milk. I'm gonna go ahead and add our sugar. And then I'm gonna put this down and crack my egg. And then I'm gonna add in my vegetable oil. And then I'm gonna go ahead and add in the salt, the baking powder, and then I'm gonna mix this up. And as I mentioned, all these recipes are meant to be super simple, super easy, doesn't take a lot of time. And we're just going to whisk this all together. And one question I get a lot frequently is sometimes people want to make these recipes dairy-free. So a lot of people have substituted the milk for almond milk, oat milk, you know, just make sure it's not it doesn't have any vanilla in it or it's like extra sweetened. It usually comes out perfect. I put in vegetable oil in. If I was at home, I would have used melted butter, but just a little easier to travel with the vegetable oil. People have used coconut oil. Basically any oil that you like to use, you can use that. So then I'm going to go ahead and add in our all-purpose flour. And then our beautiful blue cornmeal. And if you've never had blue corn, it has, to me, a very nutty flavor. It also has a very nutty smell. And it just smells so good. Now that I just poured it in, I can smell it already. So I hope you guys can smell it. And I apologize to people online. You can't smell it, but it smells good. We're just going to mix it up. And I'm going to put this down because I need hands. We're just going to mix it up. We're just going to make sure all of the dry ingredients are combined with the wet ingredients. You just want to make sure to scrape at the bottom of the bowl because a lot of times that dry meal will get stuck to the bottom. So mix, mix, mix. There we have our blue cornbread batter. So just gonna clear some group. And then we are going to bake our bread. So at 350, you're going to put it in your oven. This is my oven. I like to call it my easy bake oven. I was wanted one when I was little, but as an adult. So I'm going to do a magic trick. You guys ready to see? So Here is our magically cooked in just a few seconds. And this is, I believe it's either an 8 or 9-inch square pan. And you're just going to either spray the pan with nonstick spray, or you can line it with parchment paper. I personally like the parchment paper just because it's easier to clean up. And you just spread it evenly. You bake it for 20 to 22 minutes. You kind of like with the cake, you check the center with a toothpick just to make sure that it's fully cooked in the middle. And you can eat it on its own. You can pair it with your favorite stew. So in the cookbook, I share recipes for Three Sisters stew or chili beans. It's just one of those nice, comforting meals that you can have at home. And like I said, took very little time. And so that is the first dish I showed you guys. Let me clean up my space here, move it out of the way. And then we're going to go on to making our blue cornbread stuffing. So let's see here. And so for our blue cornbread stuffing, we are going to take the blue cornbread that we just made, and we are going to dice it up. So hang on 1 second. Let me preheat my oven. Okay. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna take the blue cornbread that we just made. Okay, now I remember when I was doing this, like, what cornbread was I gonna use for this demo? I forgot I was gonna actually use this one. You're just gonna take it out. And you're gonna wanna let it cool. So it'll probably take like at least 10 or 15 minutes for it to cool. And then we're just gonna cut it into about 1-inch squares. For this demo, I'm gonna make a small portion, so put that in. Just going to cut it into little squares. So something about this size. You can cut it a little bit smaller if you like, just up to your preference. And we're gonna put that on our baking sheet. But these are actually a little small. And you're just gonna put it on your baking sheet, and I just lined mine with parchment paper. Oh. And then I am going to take some olive oil. Use any olive oil. I don't have any with me right now, but if you've ever heard of the brand Seca Hills, they're an indigenous owned olive oil company. So they sell olive oil out of California. If you wanted to support native business, that's something you could check out. And then I'm going to take some salt. But we're gonna imagine I put some of this. And then I'm going to sprinkle on some pepper. And then we're just going to toss that all together. You can use your hands. Your hands are your best tools whenever you're working. Growing up, that's how my mom cooked. She used her hands whenever she was measuring things, and it was always a mystery as to recreating her recipes because nothing was ever measured. But so we're just gonna lightly coat that with some olive oil. And then we're gonna take it to our oven. We're gonna let it toast. And we're gonna let it toast for about 7 to 10 minutes. We're gonna let it toast. Then we're going to toss it a little bit so that way the other side can get toasted as well. So while we wait for that, we are going to make the other components of this. So let me go ahead and heat up my little skillet here. You guys couldn't tell, I like pink, so I have my little pink skillet here. I hope this is working. I don't see it turning on. Okay, I can feel it warming up. So for the stuffing, the recipe kind of just takes on like your classic stuffing ingredients. So I just chopped up some onion as well as some carrots, as well as some celery. Let's see. Okay, it's heating up. So to this, I'm going to add my olive oil. And then I'm going to add in my onions. And this is a sweet onion. You can use a yellow onion, white onion, you know, it's just based on your preference, but I like the sweet onion for this. And actually, let me find my. And I actually realized what happened to my soul. I poured the whole thing in here. It was meant to sit out for me to use. So that's where my mystery salt went. We're just going to salt that. And then we're just going to saute the onions until they become translucent. So that might take a while. My skillet is still heating up. So while we'll wait for that, I'll kind of just talk about some of the seasonings that I'm using for this. So this is just using some garlic powder, some dried parsley, some dried thyme. I actually bought the ground thyme. You should use the whole thyme. And then some black pepper and some salt. And we're also going to use some sage. This is just sage from the grocery store, and it just adds a little bit more depth of flavor. So let me make some room. I'm making a mess here. Hang on. Okay, so we're just going to take our sage.
What grocery store did you buy that from?
You can find sage at pretty much any grocery store. They usually just have it near like the fresh food sections, kind of like where they have like the prepared salad and greens. Yeah, it's usually up there. And sage smells so good. And we're just gonna roll it up, and then we're just gonna thinly slice it. And it smells so good, reminds me of home. I don't know if I recommend using sage from outside. I'm not a big forager, but if you do choose to use your own sage, I would definitely say look into it, make sure it's safe to use. I foraged mine from the grocery store, so. So that's kind of sauteing up. And then I'm going to add in my carrots. I guess I should have showed you. So the carrots are cut into small little dices. That way you don't have like big gobs of the carrot that you're eating. And then I have my celery, again, a similar size. I think I need to travel with like a headset or something to make it easier. Last week I was at the Desert Botanical Gardens in Phoenix and they were setting me up with like a lapel mic and the guy was like, do you want a headset? And I was like, do you want one? I was like, oh man, I should have. Like I could have pretended I was Britney Spears. And, just live out that little dream of mine of being a pop singer when I was younger. Okay, so that's starting to smell so good. And then I'm just gonna sprinkle in the seasoning. So I have some black pepper. I have some garlic powder. And this blend of seasoning also works really good if you want to season your chicken with something really good. This is just like a basic kind of like poultry seasoning. I have my thyme. And then I have my parsley. Whoa, that might have been too much. So we're just gonna saute this. We're not gonna overly cook it because we're gonna also assemble this and put this in a little bake tray to cook. So you just wanna like slightly cook it. Just make sure that the onion is translucent and I would say maybe like the carrots are halfway through cooking. So we have that. I don't know if you guys can smell. It smells good. It smells like the holiday. It smells like Thanksgiving. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on. Actually, let me put in my sage. Just sprinkle that in. Right. And then let's go ahead and check on our cornbread cubes. So as you can see, they're already a little toasted. They're turning a little bit more brown. Oh yeah, and these are toasting up nicely. So I'm just going to turn them around. And I'm going to put it back in our oven. Just check on this. Perfect. I'm going to turn this off now. And then I'm going to get our vegetable broth. So now we're going to assemble our blue cornbread stuffing. So actually, I'm going to take this out now because I see. It's pretty toasty. It actually toasted faster in my little oven here than my oven back out. So we'll put that there. And I just have my little baking dish. If you were to make this with a regular recipe, it fills one of these like 9 by 13 casserole dishes. So it definitely feeds a lot of people. Okay, so to this, I'm going to add in our toasted blue cornbread. And if you're doing this at home, these are hot, so be careful. So I'm gonna put that in the dish. And then we're gonna go ahead and add in our roasted vegetables. And with all of my recipes, I like to just say that it's a guide. So if you, per se, don't like celery or carrots, feel free to add in whatever vegetables that you really enjoy. I know one addition that I've been wanting to try is adding green chili to this. So I'm going to have to experiment with that, maybe this coming holiday season. So I went ahead and just added that to the top. And I'm going to add some vegetable broth. You can use chicken broth as well if you want to add a little bit more flavor. Basically, you just want to add that in to soften the bread a little bit. And this doesn't make it like overly soggy as well, like you still have the toastiness of bread. And then you just want to gently mix it together. Okay, have it like this. And then we're gonna go ahead and put it back in the oven. So we're gonna cook it for about 20 to 25 minutes. Again, not gonna make you guys wait 20 to 25 minutes for that. I just prepared some for you to try. So we can continue on with our little journey of blue cornbread, and we'll continue on in showing you how to make blue cornbread croutons. So it's very similar to what I just did a while ago. And the only difference is that I'm going to cut up the blue cornbread into little smaller cubes. I'm going to cut them into smaller cubes, and then I'm also going to season the bread before I toast it. And then we're going to toast it just for a little longer. But it's one way to use up the blue cornbread, especially if you make it alone and you're kind of unsure what to do with the leftovers. So that's why I like making it. The crouton recipe is not in my cookbook. So guys are definitely getting a little sneak peek into something different. At some point, it'll probably make its way onto my website, FancyNavajo.com. But there I do share more recipes. They're all for free. So definitely check that out. Okay, that's still hot. Okay, since that's hot, let me move my station over here. Okay, so I'm gonna cut this smaller. So that was probably about ½ inch. Just want little cubes like that. I'm just going to cut that out. Then I'm going to take that olive oil again. I'm just going to generously soak that corn kernel. And then I'm going to season this with some garlic powder, as well as some salt. And we're just going to toss that all together. And the only difference with this is I'm going to toast this a lot longer. I'm going to toast this maybe for about 10 minutes, flip it over, and then toast it again for another 10 minutes. And that's just because we want it super toasty. I'm going to take out my blue corn bread stuffing. Here, just imagine that it's a little bit more toasty than that. Okay, so while we wait for our croutons to kind of crisp up, I just wanted to share the salad portion of it. So now that we have our blue corn bread croutons, maybe thinking how to eat it. So
Microphone?
oh, sorry. I forgot about the microphone. So I just kind of made like an autumn salad. So I have some spinach. I also roasted up some butternut squash. Squash is in season right now, and it's just one of those fun ways to use it in a different way that you might not be used to. And then I topped it with some pecans. But we're going to go ahead and dress this with a maple vinaigrette. So the recipe for the maple vinaigrette, it is included in the Three Sisters pasta salad. So that's another pasta or salad option that you can have. But I really like the dressing for this recipe because it also highlights another indigenous ingredient that a lot of people may not be aware of, which is, maple syrup is an indigenous ingredient. I was gifted this one just recently. It's from the Spirit Lake Native Farms. And so this is very popular at like the northern tribes. And so I wanted a fun way to honor other traditions in my cooking as well. And so this is just a very simple maple vinaigrette. I like making my own dressings at home. It's really simple and easy to do. And it kind of adds like a sweet and tangy flavor to a lot of your salad dishes. And so since I'm just showing you how to make it, I'm not going to share specific measurements. The specific measurements are here if you want to make it. But it makes about half this amount. So you have quite a bit to use in your salad. And so to this, I'm just going to add some apple cider vinegar. Want to add it more. So this is about maybe like, I would say maybe like a 70, 30, 60, 40 ratio between the vinegar and the oil. And I'm going to add in that maple syrup. You can also use honey instead. And then I'm going to add in some pepper. And my salt. And then we're just going to whisk that together. And you want it to be completely combined. The word is called emulsify. You want the oil to become emulsified with the vinegar and oil. And that'll happen whenever it kind of turns into like this like cloudy color. You just want to mix that up. And then you can just set it aside until you're ready to have your salad. So like I mentioned, the salad incorporates a spinach. And I chose spinach because traditionally, Navajo people were nomadic people. So we foraged a lot of our foods. And so whenever I use spinach, I kind of think of that. I'm kind of reminded of that, of, those foraging days. And I just really like spinach. It's really good for you. And so I have the spinach. And then I have some roasted butternut squash. And I just love the pretty vibrant color of the squash. Kind of mushed together just a little bit, but still really good. And I just sauteed it in some olive oil with some salt and pepper. Nothing too fancy with that one. And then to this, I'm going to add in some pecans, which are also an indigenous food as well. I'll actually have to check to see if there are any indigenous producers that sell pecans. If anyone knows of any, you have to let me know. And we're just going to sprinkle that in. And then I actually made quite a bit of croutons for you to try, so I hope you guys are really excited about them. So we have our little croutons here. And again, they just look like this. They're very crunchy, they smell good. And you can just toss that into your salad. Actually, you probably should have put in the dressing first. Just pour a little bit of that in. We don't want to add too much. And then we'll go ahead and toss that together. And then I can smell the apple cider vinegar. I can smell the maple syrup. It just looks so pretty. If you wanted to, you could add feta cheese to this. You could add Parmesan cheese to this. You know, you really can't go wrong with salad combinations. And so once you have all that mixed up, you can plate it and you can top it with your blue cornbread croutons and enjoy your delicious meal that you made. And I think these guys are almost done too. Oh yeah, like this oven is cooking it a million times faster than my oven at home. So there we have it here. But yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed learning the different ways that I use the recipe for blue cornbread from my cookbook. There's really a lot you can do with it. And I hope you guys give these recipes a try, especially for this upcoming holiday season. You want to try something new, you have like friendly get-togethers, and you want to introduce them to native foods. This is one of those dishes that will get people excited, get them talking. And so we do have samples for everyone to try. You're more than welcome to try all of this delicious food. The bookstore is selling the cookbook back there. If you'd like me to sign it, I will be set up over here probably a little after the sampling is finished. I can sign your book. I do have a blue cornmeal mix for sale, as well as some stickers that say "Very gorgeous." So if you could chat, we can chat over there. But I guess does anyone have any questions for me about the dishes I prepared, about the book, just any questions you want to ask before we kind of finish this? So I know you use these. So for the, I know you said you could use the honey instead of the maple syrup. So if we decided to do maple syrup but sugar-free, that should be fine too, right? And then if we decided not to do the honey, but we wanted to do agave nectar, that would, okay. Yeah, so I think they equally resemble each other. They're like an equal substitution, so it would just be an equal exchange or substitution for that. Yeah, good question.
I just don't know what's the name of that, was it olive oil, the Sicily, or what you call it? The name of one?
Sorry. So it's called Sika Hills. So it's S-E-K-A, Sika Hills. And so they are an olive oil company based in California. So they sell different types of olive oil as well as vinegar. They're also, I believe, a winery. So they have some really cool things that they make too.
Question is, I know corn, it's hard to cook with anyway. Have you attempted to make cornbread and the cookies out of blue corn because we eat a lot of mashed during the fall? But it comes out kind of hard. What am I doing wrong? Does it need more egg, more oil? What does it mean?
So you're trying to make corn cookies?
Yeah.
Okay. Have you tried my recipe for corn cookies? Super soft.
I watched some videos, but I can't really where I got the recipe from.
Okay.
But I do know if you have recommendations as far as using more egg or oils or butter.
I would definitely start with my recipe. So corn can be a little tricky whenever you're making with it. So you kind of have to have a good proportion of like fats as well as a little bit of gluten, because if you make it totally gluten-free, it's going to become a very dense, hard cookie. And so on my website, I do have a recipe for blue corn cookies. And in the cookbook, there's also a recipe for sumac berry sugar cookies. So this utilizes the white corn. And so I would maybe just make sure your cornmeal is like pretty fresh. And yeah, try my recipe, and so kind of comes out a little funny, you know, you're more than welcome to send me an email and we can kind of figure out what's going on. But yeah, usually it's just people aren't adding enough. I know people don't like sometimes they like cooking with gluten or fats.
That's how the cornbread was things.
Mm.
I think I needed more sugar.
Yeah.
I'm actually glad she asked that question. So I have a follow-on question, but then I had a different question for you. So with the blue corn, because I've had the same experience where it comes out very like dry and hard. Is there a difference between cooking with blue corn meal versus blue corn flour?
It kind of depends. So you want to make sure if people are using the term blue corn flour that they're not actually adding in flour to it. And so sometimes people kind of use the two interchangeably, especially if the blue corn meal is like ground really, really fine. So it does kind of resemble that texture. But yeah, there really shouldn't be any huge difference. When you are cooking with cornmeal, specifically if you're going with recipes that are similar to the ones in my book, I do suggest that you try to source them from an indigenous tribe if you can, because if you were to buy like blue cornmeal from the grocery store, a lot of them, you know, they're used for more like Mexican cooking. And so the way they treat their corn is they use lime in it, which is kind of like their nixtamalization. So that might add just like a little tiny bit of a flavor difference if you are using it, as opposed to like the cornmeal that you might find from like an indigenous food producer where it's just the corn, like there's nothing else added to it.
Thank you. So the question I had for you is, first off, thank you for coming here to Tucson. I'm so excited about your book. I follow your food blog and love your recipes and was just so thrilled to see your cookbook come out and you come here. So I'm excited to read it and make some recipes here with my daughter. She loves to be my sous chef. So my question is, in your book, do you have stories that are included? Like if there's a particular recipe that was inspired by somebody in your family or an experience that you had, do you share those stories as part of the cookbook?
Yeah, so if you go through the cookbook, it's very much personal storytelling of my connection with the food and how it relates to me. And I say in the book that, you know, these recipes, the knowledge I'm sharing is very unique to me. You know, the Navajo people, we are a very large tribe. So my knowledge of Navajo foods is, you know, kind of based where I grew up, kind of in the northern part of New Mexico. So I do share in each recipe, there's a head note of, you know, what the recipe is, why we're making it, why it's popular in Navajo cuisine, if it's traditional, if it's more modern, and kind of just highlighting some of that food history that we don't talk about in Navajo cuisine. And so there's like a short history section as well. But the book is very much has stories about my connection to the food, to the land. We talk about Navajo tools, hand measurements. And so it's very much a good read if you want to sit down and read a cookbook. And it really highlights some of those recipes that I grew up eating and what I kind of see in Navajo cuisine. Yeah, good question.
What type of flour do you recommend? Because I know there's bleached and unbleached.
Oh, that's a great question and a very controversial question. So my favorite flour to cook with is I love King Arthur brand, and this is the unbleached all-purpose flour. And so this is what I like cooking with. I know a lot of Navajo people, Navajo tribes, they really like cooking with bluebird flour. And a lot of people don't know that that's bleached flour. And, you know, bleach flour is okay every once in a while, but if you're using it quite a bit, you know, it could be something you want to be cautious about. And so what I always tell people is that if you really do like bluebird flour, which is a bleach flour, Cortez Milling Company, those are the ones that produce this flour. They have an unbleached version and it's called red rose flour. And so it might be a little difficult to find, but if you are kind of like near the Cortez area, they do sell them side by side each other. And so that is another unbleached flour, which has the quality of that bleached flour. Hoover flour is really good flour to use. It's like very fine, and it makes like the softest tortillas. But it's just a little unhealthy for you. But if you don't cook with flour a lot, then some people don't mind that. If you forget any of that information I told you, it's in the Navajo food pantry section of the book of like what flours that I use as well. So that's a good question. Any other questions about just food, book? Any online questions? Go ahead.
I have a question about just kind of what, like, I know your background is in business, so like what inspired you to, was doing recipes like a part of that plan from the beginning, or was that kind of just something that you kind of just started to do and realized that, okay, this is something because I have been following you too, and I noticed that online and you usually promoting like different, I guess, I don't know how that works, but like, I think like different grocery stores or like, so I just kind of wanted to see what your, like kind of how that began for you, which I think is more of a business part of it.
Okay, there we go. That's a good question. So I personally never saw myself in this space. Like growing up, I was a very shy person. I had want no business public speaking to you guys. And if you were to ask me to do this 10 years ago, I probably would have said no. And, cooking has always been something I've enjoyed. It's been something that I've enjoyed growing up. I've always enjoyed making meals with my family. I've always enjoyed experimenting with food. And, when I was in high school and kind of determining what I wanted to do, there was one point where I did want to go to culinary school. I thought of it as a career I wanted to pursue, but as a high achieving Native student, I didn't think that would have been a successful route to do. So I decided to go into business. And, food has I think it takes point. I think the battery might be going out. Oh, okay, maybe we'll just. And so, I wanted to make a smart decision because when I graduated, for a lot of us, it takes a lot of money, it takes a lot of time to pay for that education. And so, I wanted something that could, last me throughout the years. And so I personally have also been really interested into marketing. And so that's one way, like it fueled my creativity. And so kind of having that marketing background really helped me create the Fancy Navajo. And, it really helps me in building my brand today. And, I've just been very fortunate in being able to come back again and do something that I wanted to do when I was younger that I didn't think was successful and come back around and do it now. But none of that, obviously would have been possible if I didn't have that business background of, executing a good marketing plan and, being able to communicate with these businesses for these brand partnerships that, pay for a lot of things that I do. And because of that, I'm able to offer a lot of what I do for free. And so I'm always thankful for those partnerships. And yeah, I'm just thankful that I had the opportunity to do this. And like I said, it was something that I wanted to do as a kid, and it came back around.
Are you fluent in speaking Navajo?
Am I fluent in speaking Navajo? No, I wish I was. I really wish I was. So my parents, they really didn't focus teaching us the Navajo language. And it's something I wish that they would have pushed a little harder because, as an adult, it's a lot harder for me to learn those skills. And it's something I wish I knew. I have taken many Navajo courses, although they always kind of stop at the beginner class. And so I need someone to come out with an intermediate class. That way I can advance more than just knowing my clans. But I'm glad you brought that up though, because
So there's a lot of Navajo in your book, Navajo words. So I was wondering who or how did you get those like resources?
Yeah, so the book does have a lot of Navajo language in there. And so when I was writing the book, my publishers had requested to have Navajo titles to these recipes. And when they asked that, I didn't feel qualified to do that because, you know, I know a little bit of Navajo, but, you know, doing this for 60 recipes was very daunting. And so fortunately, I had a family friend who it is her job. She does this. Her name is Irene Silent. And I want to say maybe she's even an alumni at UofA or she's taught at UofA at some point. But she helped translate all of the recipe titles for me. And it was really cool because some of these recipes are really new, like the Navajo word doesn't exist. And so when I gave her the list, she's like, hey, Alana, like just to let you know, like we're gonna have to say this word in English or else it's gonna become really hard and the title's gonna be really long. So some of them, it's like Chichen yogurt tenin. So it has like a fusion of Navajo and English words in them. And one of my favorite recipe translations she did, it's a very simple translation. So it's for the sumac berry jam. And so sumac berry, the word for that in the Navajo language is chichen. So when she translated to Navajo, it literally just was chichen jelly. And it's so cute. Like the way it's even written out is so sweet. It's so adorable. Every time I see it, it just makes me smile because it's one of those cute little translations. It didn't take very much to translate it. But yeah, it's this chichen jelly. But yeah, so she helped me do that. And as I was writing the book, I started to notice I was pulling a lot of Navajo words. And so I started to realize, like, you know, I'm not giving myself enough credit for how much Navajo I do know. And so the book does have some Navajo words in there, and there's a Navajo glossary if people want to learn some simple words like mom, dad, you know, and I thought I was able to add to the book for that. And, you know, I'm excited for some of these names to continue on in the Navajo language. Anything else? Are we all hungry now? If you have other questions, you're more than welcome to come back afterwards. But yeah, I think we should go ahead and sample the food. And if you guys are new to what I do, again, you can find me on the FancyNavajo.com. You can follow me on Instagram, Facebook at the Fancy Navajo. And I hope you guys enjoy this food.